Okay, and we're live. All right. Well, we've got
Okay.
Katherine Reutter-Adamek, two-time Olympic U.S. speed skater turned mental skills and nutrition coach. You were at the 2010 Vancouver Olympics, newest addition to the Monkey Mind Coaching Network, and you were a previous guest on episode 85. So sorry if I keep looking all over the place. We've got a new little setup here. Just got all the equipment today, so trying to get used to it. But yeah, today's topic is goal setting and recovery and nutrition and examples on how to use and practice that concept. So I'm really excited to have you on and just kind of reignite the conversation that we previously had. And obviously, with your accolades and your just athletic, the achievements that you've had, I'm excited to talk about goal setting and nutrition and how all these things play a role. And obviously, you have reached the pinnacle of everyone's career they would like to achieve, which is the Olympics or, just making it at the highest level, being a professional. So I'm excited to kind of get your perspective and, your experiences and how you can translate that to obviously helping the next generation of athletes. So, not to be too long winded, but in short, welcome. And I'm excited to have you back on here again. So, thank you.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Danny. I appreciate it.
But yeah, let's talk about briefly just your experiences and your background and how that kind of turned you into a mental skills coach, nutrition coach, and just kind of like your journey throughout sports and life and where you are today.
Yeah, for sure. Well, so as a short track speed skater, I grew up on skates. I don't even remember learning how to skate. I was so young. And I took to it quick. I mean, I was nationally ranked by the time I was 11. And then I was national champion at 16. I joined at that time, the U.S. Olympic Committee had a development team. So I joined the development team, moved away from home pretty young. I would say that's when my nutrition path started. I was too tall for my sport, so I always had to find ways to lose weight, and I had to get really good, even living in like a college dorm setting, or I had to learn how to cook for myself and just make sure that I was doing those things. It wasn't until a lot later in my career that the mental skills piece started falling into place. I got a national team when I was 18. I think I probably started working with my first sports psychologist around then, and man, I just learned like how anxious I was. And it wasn't just around my performances, it was like needing to be perfect at workouts. And, I just really learned a lot from my sports psychologist. But then when I got into coaching, is when I started to see how everything's connected. And I was just chatting with a family today about their daughter's overwhelmed. And it doesn't matter if we're talking about school or skating or food. Like when there's too much on your plate, how do you deal with that? So it wasn't until I got into coaching that I really started to learn about how these things are connected and how to simplify the process, and hopefully make it easily digestible for anyone who's just getting started or just needs a little bit of help.
When you started working with sports psychologist at 18, and if you don't mind sharing, what were some of the specific things that you discovered about yourself? Because I feel like that, correct me if I'm wrong, could be a double-edged sword. Like the things that make you great are the things that also kind of hinder you. It's kind of like finding that balance, which I think we obviously all are in life. But regardless, what were some of the things that you kind of realized about yourselves from the attributes and the intangibles that you had that were like, okay, this is making me, I need to figure this out because it's kind of hindering me now versus making me better. And like I said, that double edged sword, finding that balance in between that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the thing that stands out first for me in response to that question is confidence. And I remember very specifically being taught how to kind of go through my personal highlight reel of things that I was proud of as a way to develop confidence, especially if I wasn't feeling it. And that was a new concept. And I've learned how to speak it more clearly as a coach because it's very common for an athlete to need that external performance in order to get the confidence, or they need the sponsorship, or they need the highlight in the newspaper, like whatever it is. And I was probably stuck in that trap of just I need to perform my way into feeling better. And learning how to have that positive highlight reel was my first introduction to no, no, no. You choose the things you feel good about. You play those things on repeat until you're confident, and then you'll perform better. And I was
Mm-hmm.
always using my performance to fuel my confidence rather than fueling my confidence to have it's to be honest with you, it's not even better performance. It's just performance that you're content with. Because I've lost in some super embarrassing ways. And I've also lost in some ways that I'm really proud of. I'd say the same over winning. I've had really decisive wins that I were perfect, and I've had wins that were kind of sneaky and that wasn't really the ref didn't call it kind of thing. So
Yep.
the outcome doesn't matter as much as how I feel about my outcome. So
Mhm.
learning that it's about me practicing that from the inside out was really helpful. And actually that's going to lead us right into our topic today of goal setting.
Cool. Well, yeah, let's get right into it. And I have a question to kick it all off. Again, just reiterating, obviously being able to be an Olympian, you must have been able to have some goals and to be able to, set your sights on things and achieve those. So, couple different layers of questions is how do you relate your past experiences to the way that you set goals to help athletes currently set goals? And yeah, just kind of dive into your approach when it comes to goal setting, because I feel like a lot of people do set their goals and then kind of focus on them, but obviously, I'm sure we'll get into process and all that type of stuff, but talk about your experience with setting those goals and then achieving them and how
Yeah.
you utilize that to work with athletes.
Yeah, I had a really unique experience as an athlete where in 2010 I was 21 and I was good. I was winning races. I was internationally ranked. I was top 3. I think I was in the top 5 in every distance. I mean, I was a medal contender. And at that point in my life, that was my first Olympics. I'll be honest with you, I was a highly anxious athlete. And I was setting my goals in a more traditional way, which again is like, ooh, I don't feel good and I need the thing in order to feel good and boost my
Yep.
confidence. So that um I mean, with air quotes here, like that worked because I was successful, but
Yep.
my experience was I'm anxious, I'm stressed, I'm my sports psychologist is attached to my hip. Like I
Yep.
needed so much support, even though I was so successful. And then I got hurt. I took 2014 off. I coached during that time. I learned a lot. I got connected with a new sports psychologist who was more meditation and mindfulness based. And this sports psychologist taught me a different style of goal setting. He taught me how to consider from the inside out. Same with confidence, right? Like instead of I'm unhappy and I need that thing, what if we go with these are the things that I'm really good at. I'm happy with that regardless. And I would love to do that. That would be great. Like that's where I want to go. And it changed my mindset from I don't need the goal to feel good about myself. I can function from a place where I'm not anxious. I'm not looking for those external validators. I'm functioning from a space within inside me that I feel good about. And because I'm functioning from that place, I know what I want, and I can put
Mhm.
my finger on it and say these are my goals. Um, the other thing that was helpful in that process was it's a little less personal when you don't need the goal in order to feel good about yourself. If you mess up, it's like, oh shoot, what did I learn? How can I get closer next time? As opposed to like, I didn't get it, I'll never be good enough. And you can just imagine what a volatile experience that can be if you need the outcome in order to feel good. So that was a big flip for me in 2018, to start from more of a place of contentment, choose my goals based on what was exciting to me, what I wanted to do with my life, as opposed to feeling like I needed to achieve these things just for my own sense of confidence.
So it's more so taking care of the person before and just kind of reshaping kind of your mindset toward achieving that goal. Obviously, would your goals have changed looking back, you know, knowing what you know now? Or, I mean, I don't know. It's hard for me to, in ways to relate it because like hockey, right? People think I want to play in the NHL or Division One, whatever that is, right? But in a sport like speed skating, the eventual goal is the Olympics, right? I would assume. So then, um, how do you kind of reshape that like mentality on it? Because that is kind of what people achieve their whole life, whether it be a sport like
Yeah.
speed skating, like those traditional Olympic sports, gymnastics. So how do you kind of reframe that? Is it more so just taking care of how you view that goal and the person that you are on the way to get there versus applying so much pressure onto that, like one sole thing? And if you get it, you're confident, like banking your confidence on achieving that, right? I'm trying to understand how you like shift that
Yeah.
mindset when it comes to it is all the same thing, but it does kind of vary by sport, like
Yeah, and I think my answer to that is actually because I had such a successful 2010 experience, I learned that you can achieve the goal. You can be an Olympic medalist
yeah,
and get all the sponsors and go on all the TV shows and you get all the Nike stuff. Like you can
yeah,
do
yeah.
all the things.
Hmm.
And 3 or 4 months go by and the Olympics are over and you're back to normal life. I'm still anxious, but I
Hmm.
did all the things. So why do I still feel like nothing's ever good enough? It's got to be perfect.
Yep.
Um, and that was a wake up call. Like, you're telling me that I can achieve every worldly thing that I set my mind to, break every record, win every race, all the medals that I like, and I still struggle with this. Man, the
Hmm.
reason I worked so hard is so I could check this box and not struggle like this.
Yep.
And that's what reoriented it for me was that actually, and it comes back to that outcome thing. Do I need to win to feel good? Yes, I did. And then when I realized that, hey, winning doesn't, it does make you feel good. It's a really cool, fun experience, and winning wears off. That happens to everybody. So that really woke me up to like there's a better way, there's a different way to do this, there's a better way to do this, there's a healthier way to do this. But to your point, it does require a bit of a restructuring out of this mindset of I need the things and into the mindset of I need to do what's best for me and take care of myself. And, the reality is, hey, I got hurt at 21. I had 3 hip surgeries and a knee surgery by the time I was 24. I did not accomplish everything I could have or should have as an athlete. Um, and that's a painful experience. So there's lots of athletes who maybe weren't as good at 21. Ariana Fontana is a great example. Now she's the most decorated female Winter Olympian of all time. She's going to her 5th Olympic Games in Milan Cortina. In 2010, she won a medal, but she wasn't like, top 5 in every distance. But here she is 15 years later, and she's got multiple medals in every distance.
Hmm.
So I think that it was actually a gift for me to have that success and that setback early on from a coaching perspective, because yeah, I kind of know what happens when the shooting star burns out. And I personally, as a coach, I put a lot of effort and value into helping kids. Like, you don't have to peak tomorrow. You don't have to be on a timeline or else you're failing. You have to be figuring out, what are my strengths that I can rely on when I need to boost my confidence? What are the goals that I'm intrinsically motivated towards? So even if I get hurt tomorrow, hey, if I love hockey, getting hurt doesn't change that. Okay, now I'm a
Hmm.
coach. Now I'm a video assistant. Now I'm working a side job with my youth program. No
Yep.
problem. When it's coming from that internal place, the natural highs and lows of life don't hurt as much.
Hmm.
And I don't know if that answers your question, but hopefully it kind of puts a different perspective on it, at least.
No, it definitely does. And I want to kind of jump into when you work with athletes. Obviously, I think having the experience that you have is a major component when coaching athletes through anything, really, having that relatable life experience. So, kind of diving into your coaching philosophies and obviously the more into the topic of goal setting. If you have an athlete coming into you to talk and say, hey, I have this goal that I want to achieve. I need your help achieving it. There's some anxiety behind it, or, I just really want to get there and I need some assistance. How do you relate, your experiences to them? And then how do you coach them through that with
Yeah.
whatever it is that they want to achieve? What's your kind
Yeah.
of philosophy?
Well, my first point whenever I'm working with a new athlete is that, hey, it's normal and admirable to be someone who's pushing yourself and who's motivated by self-improvement. Sometimes we get in the trap where we're achieving the goals, but we are never, like, metaphorically, we don't feel like we're getting the carrot, even though the
Mm-hmm.
performances are there, the sense of satisfaction that you hope comes with performing well, it's not always there.
Mm-hmm.
So I like to start with looking at that in an athlete's headspace. Do we have a good balance of what's going well up against what we want to do better? The ideal ratio for positive and negative is 5 positives to every 1 negative. So if I want to help an athlete be confident, and I think that can tie in with goal setting really well, because why do we want to set goals? We want to feel better. We want to enjoy this experience and achieve our goals on the process. The first thing I want to know is, hey, you are going to have bad days. It's not an if, it's a when. So first of all, what are the 5 things that you can fall back on your worst day? You're still good at these 5 things. And that takes a while. Very few athletes can pop them right off their head. It's very normal for someone to sit and think for several minutes and only get 2 or 3, and then have to ask their teammates or their family or their friends, like, hey, what am I good at? And so that's a normal process that I do encourage folks to go through. And then to look at what are the things we want to work on. It can be out of balance if all we're focusing is what we want to work on. So while I know there's more than one thing at a time, we can really only focus on the one thing at a time. So we pick the one area that we need to improve. So let's say it's routines. I have a lot of athletes that struggle specifically with bedtime routines. And so there are things that we know are tried and true and they work. Like, it's sad, but it's true. You got to get your devices off, or you at least have to put them in black and white mode or dark mode or whatever it is that helps your brain disconnect. We know that that works. So then there's a kind of an action taking step of actually doing the things. We know that eating too close to bedtime, you won't sleep as well. So what do we have to do to make sure that you're timing your meals or packing appropriate snacks so that you're not getting home from practice at midnight, eating a huge plate of lasagna and scrolling until 2 a.m. So if my goal is to be a D1 athlete, part of that process is, hey, I shoot well, I pass well, I take feedback well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But man, I'm tired and lethargic. So let's look at your sleep. Let's look at your food. If it's not an effort thing, which it rarely is, most athletes are giving as much effort as they possibly can. But unfortunately, I feel that there's this trick of like, ooh, if I could just try harder, that'll drive you nuts. It'll
Yeah.
really drive you nuts, especially when it doesn't work. Because sometimes it'll work and you'll think it's working, but sometimes it won't, and it hurts your feelings. There's a better way. So again, like I kind of spiraled off there, but does that make sense?
No, 100%. And the way that I'm kind of viewing it, which are things that I'm realizing older,
Mm.
what I'm taking from what you're saying is we have all the coaches in the world to make athletes the most skilled at their sport, right? And strength and conditioning, all these sort of things that I've noticed that athletes are very skilled in the sport, and games are progressing so much, right? At all the sports. Athletes are faster, stronger, more creative, all those things, right? But what I'm hearing is the habits and the things away from the sport are what really are the separating factors. Like you're talking about, well, I want to be a D1 athlete. Well, but you're feeling lethargic. So has really, like you talk about the working harder thing. It's like, well, you don't go into the gym and work even harder. You're already in the gym 5 times a week. You're already on the ice or, on the court, whatever it is, 6 times a week, 7 times a week. Look at your habits away from it that affect the person that you are and want to be. It's those habits and kind of like those intangibles that are, like you said, people think that they have to work harder to get there when it's just changing kind of the person that you are and your relationship with the goal and kind of like that process away from the sport. And I don't know if I'm missing the mark or if I'm not really making too much sense, but it's kind of like those things that are like those true separators, right? It's like you want to be a D1 athlete or Olympic athlete or professional athlete, whatever sport, you have to start being that person today. And that's taking care of everything from sleep, nutrition, and just kind of being that person now in those other areas, then, like you said, working harder and giving more of a physical effort in those things like training or whatever that may be. And I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but is that kind of what I'm hearing?
Yeah, and I'll share an example. And I am picking some nutrition and bedtime routine examples specifically because, I mean, yeah, if you're tired, if you're lethargic, if you're stressed, if you're overwhelmed, if you're a perfectionist, how's your food? How's your sleep? Because to your point, you're already in the gym, you're already doing video, you're already on the ice. So at a certain point, you can only do those so much. So we need to start looking at what I would call the softer skills.
Yeah.
And those are often the skills that make up our foundation. So I like how you said maybe it's more about just changing your relationship with the goal. And I'll share another nutrition example as an athlete. Our ice rink in Utah, when I was on the national team in Salt Lake City, was just down the road from a Chick-fil-A. And gosh darn it, if the vast majority of teammates didn't want to go to lunch every day at Chick-fil-A. But hey, I don't know about most people. I feel heavy and lethargic after I have fast food, and we're back in 3 hours for an afternoon workout. So I would see people come back from that feeling heavy and slow. And here's the thing, unmotivated, but it's not like in that time you became unmotivated to achieve your goals. It's like in that time you went out with a bunch of friends, you spent a lot of energy, you ate some junky food, you didn't make time for a nap, and now you're wondering why you don't feel 100% for the afternoon workout. I wouldn't say that that athlete is unmotivated. I would say that the behaviors that athlete is participating in aren't consistent with those goals, the goals that they set in the first place. And part of doing all the things is taking an appropriate amount of time to have fun and to have friendship and fellowship and to go out to eat if you want and to stay up late and watch a movie every now and then. I'm really not suggesting like a perfect, rigid type of life. But I am suggesting, yeah, like if we're looking at goal setting, what behaviors support our goals? Because in my experience, most people know what they want. They just don't necessarily know what are the actions I'm supposed to be taking to get there.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes the actions to get there are so boring and monotonous that they're not prepared for that. It is boring to go home and have rice and chicken and vegetables and take a nap. That's boring. Okay. But you have a great
Yeah.
afternoon workout. And I can go to Chick-fil-A on Saturday when I don't have a Sunday workout. And I can stay up and watch TV if I want on Saturday night. I don't have to scroll till 2 a.m. on a school night. Like I have options. My dog doesn't have options though. He's squeaking this toy. Give me 1 second. Okay. Sorry about
All good. No, yeah, I love the way that you break that down. And I think it's true. It's falling in love with the boring aspects of the process. And I want to hear your opinion on the athletes that you work with now, what you're seeing today in current athletes and your experiences. What are those key separators from when you were competing that separated the best of the best from those who just fell short or weren't going to get there? And what are kind of those key separators that you're seeing in athletes now from those who achieve their goals and those that don't, or those that miss the mark?
That's a great and deep question. Because I do most of my work right now with high school athletes, and we do spend a fair amount of time talking about the level of goal that's appropriate. And I see right now, maybe this is another of those double-edged swords, because I did have an experience as an athlete where perfectionistic tendencies do keep you really quite sharp. They can become overwhelming and break an athlete down, but they can keep you right on that edge. And I would say if you can do that for a short amount of time, it's really effective. It's when that's your default mode that becomes harmful. And
When you
I
never know how to turn that off, right?
exactly, or just
Yeah.
give yourself some grace of like
Yep.
now something I learned again in my nutrition coaching, and I wish I'd known as an athlete. Um, Nutrition has phases just like training, and you don't need to be, again, I was always trying to lose weight, so I was trying to be high protein, low carb all the time, want to be skinny as possible all the time. The majority of my injuries were because I was malnourished. I didn't have to do that to myself. I could have done that for 6 to 8 weeks at a time to prepare for a big competition, and then I could have eaten like a normal 150-pound girl. But I maintained weight like under 130 for years on end. And no wonder I got hurt, that like I wasn't feeding myself properly. So I'm going to tie that back in by saying that the same with our goals. You can be really sharp and really focused and have those perfectionistic tendencies in an appropriate time and space. And then you can take a step back and say, it's Sunday, I'm going to Chick-fil-A. It's Saturday night, I'm hanging with my friends. And what I'm seeing with athletes now is that perfectionistic tendency is kind of spinning on overdrive. A lot of athletes I work with are really on the edge of overwhelm, and they have too many things to do, too many things that are important. They know their school things that are important. They know their family and friends things that are important. They know their sport things that are important, but how to balance these things. And so now what I see is a little less of like, how can you appropriately manage, and a little bit more of everyone's trying to manage everything, and it's okay to just peel things back off the plate. It's not possible to be perfect. Human beings do have a capacity. So that's where it comes back to, especially if you are feeling anxious or overwhelmed or spread thin. What are the 5 things you're already good at? What one thing are you focusing specifically on right now? And if that doesn't feel like you're doing enough, okay, take that one thing. I want to be better at speed work. So I'm going to sleep well every night. I'm going to have a high carb breakfast before my speed work so my muscles are fueled properly. I'm going to be there 20 minutes early so I'm doing my fast footwork and my mobility work so that my joints are safe and my muscles are twitchy. Like, when you take that one thing you're working on and you break it down into smaller goals, I suppose, again, if you overdo it, you can really get in the weeds with the amount of overwhelm and all the stuff you have to do. But if that first step was coming back to my 5 things that I can hang my hat on, and no one can take them away from me, no one can take away my personal best time, the most weight I ever lifted. That time that someone was a jerk and I beat their butt in the next workout, but I didn't say anything. I was nice. No one takes that away from you. Those are the things you hang your hat on. And then the other things are more opportunities to learn. And I just don't currently see athletes nowadays. What I see is everyone feels like they have to do everything. And no wonder we all feel worn out. I mean, it's not supposed to be like that, but that's our current trending direction.
Yeah, I love the way that you break that down, and the way that you just kind of explain that. That's deep and it hits home big time for sure. Just coaching youth hockey and the amount of times that I hear the word, and I've got major sympathy for parents. I'm not a parent, but the amount of times I hear FOMO and ROI, I'm like,
Mm,
what has happened to the game of
yeah.
hockey? And I only coach hockey, so that's my small subset. So I'm sure it's going on in other sports, but it's like, whoa, let's take a step back here. Like I I went to college and I heard the word ROI like 4 times. I don't know why I'm hearing that on a hockey rink, like
Yeah.
with 10-year-olds. But uh yeah, I think that there's this overstructure, right? That I think you're kind of maybe alluding to with kids are playing their sports 12 months out of the year and a million different teams, and it's finding that like I don't know. I'm curious your perspective on this. Like, I don't think it's ever good to tell a kid no if it's self driven, right? Like you want, and that's where I kind of battle as a coach. It's like you want the kid to want to play the sport all the time because they love it, right? But then if it's self motivated, but then it's like where do you find that balance of like, whoa, like we haven't taken a break at all, and it's like, and then there's the expectation of them being, like you said, a phenomenal student and playing multiple sports, and then all the other sports are now going into the same seasons as the other sports, and it's like you're playing 2 3 different sports that all go year round and then hold a high standard of academics, and then it's like, and then at least in my world what I'm seeing is the majority is anywhere from 8 to 13, right? Like, and then obviously with the summer, kids come back from junior, whatever, it's that pool opens up. But yeah, I would agree. Like that's a lot of pressure to apply on a young kid. And again, I'm not a parent, so I sympathize with them as big time. But I'm sure there's pressure on parents as well, and that's a big reason why I do this. And I'm happy that like I'm really grateful that you come on and share these things because of your experience and your level of knowledge on this type of stuff and willing to continue coaching and help the next generation. I'm grateful that you're able to bring this up because it's kind of like that elephant in the room that is just like at all the rinks that I'm at. It's like, should we be doing this as much as we're doing this kind of thing?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just curious, like, kind of your thoughts on all that, and if that's kind of what you're, alluding to, really.
Yeah, so I think we can do sports in a healthy way. And the shortest little way I could phrase it, that I've never met anyone that disagrees with this. Occasionally, we as adults, parents, coaches, whatever, we make the mistake of winning sports with kids. But what we're trying to do is to win kids with sports. We're trying to teach people how to be better people because they love sports, and we can practice diversity, and we can practice conflict management, we can practice time management and pushing yourself through hard things that you don't like. But occasionally, hey, life's hard, and the way gets a little fuzzy, and maybe we trend one way. Then you're saying it right, like this is happening and we can see it, but staying on the middle ground, the middle of the path, it's hard. It's not just hard in sports, that's hard to do. And so just in response to what you had said about, it's great when your players are intrinsically motivated. The way I like to help a player, like specifically a player who maybe needs a break or just needs to give themselves a break. What I'm going to use an example of a player. I'm like, hey, you love, what's your favorite part? All my friends are here.
Yeah,
Okay, so you're
yeah,
fueled and motivated by friendship, and your friends are shooting pucks, so you're shooting pucks. But now I can relate to you in a different way. I can give you different assignments based on the fact that I know you like to relate to people.
mm,
Somebody else is going to be very stats driven, and they really like to check their numbers and their data points. So then I can connect with that athlete in a way that's more trending in that direction. And then when the day comes to take a break, and ideally it's a planned break, because the worst is when you don't plan your breaks and then you're forced to take a break because you're hurt or you're sick. Ideally, just like phasing our training, phasing our nutrition, ideally we're phasing our breaks. And we're saying, hey, to make sure you still feel happy and healthy and whole during your break, you're very relationship motivated. Please join a friend group, join a school group, join a church group. Go get in a group, because that's what you love about being here at the rink, is being with your friends. So go fill that space. You love data analytics. I don't love data analytics. So I'm in the relational type. So I don't have necessarily an example of where to send that kid.
mm,
Um, but I've had kids before who they eat really sharp because they love to be in the kitchen. All right, well, in your off season, you should go get a kitchen job, right? You don't need to bang your head against the wall. I'm taking too much time off. You need to go fuel your life force with the other things that you like, and then you'll
yeah,
come back motivated with goals that excite you, and we can try to eliminate that pressure a little bit.
yeah, yeah. I think I love that, the way that you frame that, and kind of the way that you shift the perspective on it. Because I think there's a time where an athlete, you're a little tired or you're a little burnt out. Well, you know what? It's the middle of the season right now, and you've got to find an extra gear and dig deep, right? And as a coach, I'm trying to navigate how I coach that. But it's okay. Well, it's the off season, so we can take a breather, and
Mhm.
you can go refuel your life with other things. And I also love that you kind of try and figure out what makes each athlete tick, because every athlete has to, is motivated by different things. And as a coach, it's your job to figure that out and help, you know, push that, whatever it is that makes that athlete go. That's our job, is to push them and find out what works for them. So I'm happy that you mentioned that as well. So, I mean, what are some suggestions that you have for anyone listening as we, start to close this out? Um, any kids that's listening that maybe is feeling that pressure, and loves the sport, knows that they do, but right now isn't loving it so much, or maybe a parent or set of parents that is out there that feels that FOMO, or is wondering about the ROI, because the reality of sports are very expensive and it's very time consuming. So that is the reality. What's your kind of suggestion or 2 cents, I guess, to them, that's listening, and just helping guide a healthy future and a healthy relationship with the sport? That way kids aren't getting burnt out by 16, 17, 18, or whatever it is. And they can continue to keep playing and want to keep playing.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm glad you brought up that point of burnout, and especially the need for the mid-season push. And that is the part of sports that makes you better off, because not everyone has to learn how to find that fifth gear. But again, sports gives us the opportunity to go to fifth gear, and then it's the right thing to come back to fourth and third and so on. So the fifth gear isn't the problem. The getting stuck in fifth gear is the problem. And so actually a lot of work I do is around sleep, stress, and recovery. And so you kind of know if you're burnt out, right? Are you overworked or under recovered? Because I know a lot of like the workouts aren't too hard, but I have a 2 hour commute home. I sleep at midnight. I'm at school at 7. So you aren't overworked. The work wasn't too hard, but the recovery from the work was severely less than what you needed. So for parents or athletes, I would suggest you're probably already working hard enough. You know, if you're listening to this podcast, you're motivated, you're looking to learn and improve, you're probably already doing it. Where are the opportunities to have a little grace and a little space? Maybe it's not an answer of working harder, maybe it's an answer of recovering harder, and then finding again, like, what are those strengths? So I'm speaking from experience here. I was a relationally driven athlete. I continue to be a relationally driven person. So if I don't feel like going to practice, and I need to find that fifth gear, maybe I'm telling more jokes today. And that might look to the coach like I'm unmotivated, but actually I'm leaning in on my strength to make sure that I can get through this. And as a coach, you need to know that too. Parents too. Is your kid goofing off, or are they just, this is actually what's most helpful for them to continue to enjoy this right now? That's okay. Um, like I said, most people aren't overworking, most people are under recovering, and I hope that helps.
Yeah, it definitely does. I think we'll close off on that note. I really appreciate your time and I appreciate your perspective. I feel like I'm a better coach just from this conversation. I feel like I've learned a lot in these 30, 40-ish minutes that we've been talking. So I'm excited to have you in our network and help, athletes and parents and coaches and whoever out there is looking for kind of like that extra perspective shift or that assistance throughout the journey. And so, like I said, I'm a better coach. I feel like from this conversation, I've learned a lot from your perspective. And so thank you for your time and for your energy toward this and your, giving us your knowledge and experience and perspective. So it's very appreciative, and I'm excited to put this out into the world and look forward to more conversations. So thank you again, and yeah, hope you have a great rest of your day.
Yeah, thanks, Danny. That's really kind. I appreciate those kind, positive words, and I hope all your listeners feel the same. And hopefully back on soon.